little annoyed because it's never just good. It's never just good light. Like it's too much and then lines in my face, although glowy, hello. Or again, just lines in my face. And it's just neither one. So we're just kind of trying to center here with this little bit of shadow. Hey guys, it's Bree coming to you with the B face, and today we have the last Love is Blind review. So this is episode 11 and then the reunion. So episode 11, this is the remainder of the wedding. So everyone else has their weddings. Honestly, after Zanab and Cole, I forgot that there was another couple. Because it was stressful. So episode 11 kicks off where we left off in episode 10. So that's Bartise and Nancy getting married. Nancy has already said yes, and Bartise is just standing there. And then Bartise says, "I do not." And you know what? I expected that. I definitely was like, after he met Raven and was saying all that stuff about, you know, how they're just not physically compatible. And then, you know, when they were having all those issues with the family and just, you know, where he was like, I'm just not in it anymore physically. But then he kind of turned a corner. I was like, this is not gonna have a good ending. This is not gonna be a fairy tale. And so I did expect that. Listen, props to Nancy's family, because every single last one of them is 10 toes down. They were ready to fight Bartise. And I don't blame them. They were like, you know, you gonna say something to me, like you're gonna talk to me like you don't deserve her, blah, 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 all of that stuff. So then they finally get away from all of the family, and she like rips that bracelet off, and she's like, I don't want this. This doesn't mean anything anymore. And it was like he was trying to say, well, we could date after this or outside of this. And she was like, no, thanks. Like I said yes to you. You said no. There is nothing more to talk about. Like, I mean, this is over. And as she should. Like, you kind of made it clear, if not through just then saying no and blindsiding her, like she said, it's through the entire, like, when she watches that back, I cannot imagine she's gonna be happy with how he is speaking about her physically, and how he's just not as into her as he thinks he should be, and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, that it wasn't surprising, but I do feel bad that she is hurt. He has a lot of excuses for his behavior. Like I said, he talks a lot, and it's just like, you talk fast, you are sure of what you are saying when you're speaking. It's just not a lot of substance. And so it's like, you know, that what is it? Is it a scripture where it's like, for all their many words, you know, they're really not saying anything. So yeah, that's kind of what I get from Bartise. So, you know, whatever, that's that. The light is better now. A little bit. So then we get to Alexa and Brennon's wedding day. Brennon looks good in a suit. I mean, he, you know, talks about him not being super into clothes and dressing and stuff, but he had the collar shirt on with the suspenders and the tie. I said, sir, yes, like you do this very well. Alexa's dad is walking her down the aisle, and he starts to cry, and it's like, my heart. Brennon says, I do immediately, and then Alexa says, I do, and we finally have a marriage. So happy for them. That was one where it really would have been surprising if either one of them said no, because it's really just been smooth sailing throughout. So, and they both seemed very sure of each other. So there's that. Then we get to Zanab and Cole's wedding day, and this was the most shocking. I was shocked about SK and Raven not saying yes. Zanab and Cole's wedding was a disaster. I mean, just from how it led up to, like, the buildup was so good, and Cole is like, Zanab is 10 toes down. She's so loyal. It would take a lot to shake this girl. Zanab is saying, he's just a great man. He's been, like I just love him so much, and I want to marry him, and all this stuff. To get to the altar, start off with a prayer, then immediately go into bashing this man when they ask, do you or don't you? And she, like, not only does she say, I'm not the girl for you, she goes in. Like, she goes in and is like, you have single-handedly destroyed my self-esteem. And he is just standing up there like, what is going on? I mean, and there were so many cute moments even at the altar where, like, the minister's talking and Cole's just like, I want to kiss you right now. And she's like, you can't. And it's like, all of that was so cute. And then it just ended. It just ended. And even the minister is like looking at him like, I don't know what to tell you. It was brutal. It was brutal to watch. I hated it. I hated it. And I also feel like he had a point. It's like, why did you say this to me? You did it in front of everyone. It's not just your friends and family, it's my friends and family too. And you did this in front of everyone. And I can imagine that that was just hurtful. I mean, he looked like he did not expect that. And then Zanab's stepmom comes up and gives him a hug. And he's like crying, and he's like, I never intended to hurt your daughter. And she's like, you're good. You are okay. It is okay. I mean, that is awkward and horrible and horrifying and embarrassing. And I feel for Zanab with, the decision to not continue with that relationship. But I feel so much more for Cole, because I just don't know that I could gather up the gumption to do that to somebody in front of their friends and family, in front of an audience. I just feel like there was no need for that undressing. So I can't even be 100% on Zanab's side, and it's so, it was just, it's unfortunate. And I think they were the ones that I was most interested in to see like how their story played out. I mean, partly because of the faith thing, because I'm like, how is this gonna work? But also, just because when they were on and when they were good, they were so good. Like the boat ride dinner, when he's just like, that lipstick, you're doing something to me, babe. And when they were dancing and he's like, I am mad about you. I was rooting for them. We were all rooting for you. I was rooting for them. And I was just so disappointed that it ended that way. Yeah, that was a lot. It was terrible. And then Colleen and Matt, honestly, after Zanab and Cole, I was spent. And I just was like, I mean, these people have to. I mean, I cannot deal anymore. So Colleen and Matt, their wedding day, they both say I do. It seemed like that was a big step for Matt. And just with his history that has been, kind of regurgitated throughout this whole process, I think even his friend was like, I just don't think you are ready for this. And he's like, yeah, probably not. But I mean, they both said yes, and I'm glad. I think if she had said no, that man would have just put a sign on his head that says, do not approach, forever and ever. So I am glad that they both said yes. That, hey, we got 2 marriages out of this thing, but oh wow, what it took to get here. So that was episode 11. So that was the last episode. And then the reunion happens. Oh, I mean, it was a 1-part reunion. So it wasn't like, drama heavy, but the guys did get the brunt of the beating here. The 2 couples are still together. So Matt and Colleen are still together. Brennon and Alexa are still together. The first thing that they really talk about is like Poolgate, that whole conversation with Cole and Colleen. While this clip was playing, Cole is looking and like shaking his head like, I should not have done that. Can't believe I did that. Brennon is the one who calls Cole out and was like disrespectful. deceitful, just upset. How dare you? Like, Brennan has been very cool and, you know, not in a lot of the drama, but in this one, he was like, I have a problem with that. And I'm trying to inch away as the sun just moves across my face. Yeah, so Brennan said something, and then, you know, everyone has their say about what that was, you know, how that affected people and, you know, what that was about and how that made people look. Matt did give Colleen props because he was like, I was not shocked watching that because Colleen told me everything that she said. And so it wasn't like I see it and now, oh my gosh, like we had this conversation, she told me right away. And so I respect her for that. And I think everyone was upset with Cole because he was like, you, and this was Brennan's point too, was like, you proposed to someone. At that point, we're done with the whole experiment part. Like, we're in real life now. And so it is inappropriate for you to now go and have this conversation with this other person who is also engaged. Like, the whole thing was inappropriate. And he was like, yeah, that was inappropriate. I shouldn't have done it, blah, blah, blah. He's sorry. Then we get to Raven and SK's situation. Raven says she was not blindsided, but she just wasn't prepared for the emotions that came with it, which makes sense to me. Like, it makes sense that he would have said, I don't think that I can say yes to you, but it is not because I don't love you. It is just because, you know, these issues we're having, I'm about to leave, you're not willing to come. And so, I mean, we got to work this out. It's not going to be a good marriage if we have all these things that we haven't worked out too. But then also having to go through a wedding day, and I'm sure that's in their contract, having to go through a wedding day, be in front of everyone, which, I mean, it's probably good that her family was not there, being in front of everyone, and the mom who she like had a connection with and has a connection with, and having to like go through the motions basically to know that it's not going to result in a marriage. But girl, they're still together. And so, I mean, that's cute. At least it's like, this was a real thing. We're still together in real life. It just couldn't be a marriage at this point. And that is fair. That is a fair conclusion to come to after a month. Or after 2 months, whatever the stretch of time that this whole experiment happened, it makes sense, you know? So then they show the clip of both Nancy and Raven talking about each other, talking crap about each other, and they're both like kind of cringing. And so it looks like they are now cool with each other. They are now like, you know, sisterhood or the traveling pants, whatever they are. And it was like, you know, we were going off of first impressions. I love her now, and that's just not how I feel anymore. So, I mean, like I said, there's no drama there. This wasn't drama heavy. Then we get to Bartise and his mouth vomit, his word vomit about how attractive Raven is. And so, you know, Raven was basically just like, I shut that down immediately because there was no reason to go into that. I am happy with my relationship. I thought you were happy with your relationship. And I respect Nancy. I would never want to disrespect someone's relationship. And SK was like, that's fine. Like, my girl is a bad D. I understand that men are gonna have, you know, some feelings about that, and that's okay. He's like, I am not insecure about that. My girl is fine. And he did though call out Bartise about Bartise's little reenactment of the things that SK told him in a conversation about how his first night went with Raven. He said, truth, being honest or whatever, like, I really don't care. The fact that you would take something that I had in a conversation with you and Cole, it's supposed to be a bro conversation. The fact that you took that, reenacted it with your fiance to make some kind of joke out of it, to just, you know, make some kind of point out of it, that I don't know that we would still be cool after that. And I was like, facts. I mean, yes. So there was that. Then we get to Colleen and Matt. Apparently they don't live together right now, but like they're spending 7 days a week together. They're just not at one central address. and they're planning when both of their leases are up to, you know, get a place together. But then, okay, so Nick Lachey reaches across and like kind of gives Matt like a little fist bump, because Matt has been married before, and Nick goes, "It's always better the second time around, isn't it?" Ew, like, why would you say that? That was such a cringy moment. Gross. Then Nick reenacts the whole eye drop situation, and they were like, "We invited Andrew to come and he just declined." Like, yeah, I wouldn't want to talk about that either. That was a wild moment on TV. Then we get to Bartise and Nancy. Nancy's, you know, crying about the situation, but then she was like, Bartise is out here bagging blondes the day after we had our wedding. So, I mean, ain't nothing there no more. Like, whatever. Then, you know what was so annoying? Bartise was like, I don't feel comfortable talking about my sex life. Everyone there is like, who asked you to? You brought it up, because they were just saying you were somewhere with a tall blonde the day after our wedding. That is the truth of what happened. He goes into explaining, you know, I just cope in my own way. You had said that you were done, so I just don't think that it's anybody's business. And nothing even happened that night. But I mean, something did eventually happen, but I just don't feel comfortable talking about my sex life. It's like, bro, you brought this up. No one asked you that. No one asked those questions. You volunteered this information, so you can chill out with that. Then we get to Zanab and Cole. So they show a little snip of just like kind of a montage of all of Zanab's naggy moments. And Cole is basically like, you know, putting it all together like that, it looks like she's a lot more naggy and I'm more goofy than what was actually happening. I think there was very much a middle ground, is what he said. And Zanab was watching it and she said, I think looking at that, I could have had more grace. I just was not used to living with anyone. I like my space. I have been, you know, very particular about my space. And so this was just a new experience, right? So I'm like, okay, self-awareness, right? Alexa knows every piece of tea that there is to know, every drop of it. And she's like, I'm just waiting till we can talk about this. I'm waiting till we can talk about that. I'm waiting till this comes up and blah, blah, blah. And just how terrible Cole was to Zanab during their time together, right? And so Zanab talks about how Cole told her he tried to get a girl's number at their bachelor party, and he wanted to kiss some girl, and you know that Cole actually told her this verbatim, that he had things to say about her weight and the way that she was eating and how she ate and all of that stuff, to where she just stopped eating for a period of time. And Cole is like, this is not true. And Brennon gets on him for saying like, this is insane. He's like, let's not call her emotions insane. And he's like, well, this is crazy. He's like, same thing. And Cole was like, okay, how about this? You are lying. So that, yeah, there was, it just, Cole was getting an emotional beatdown at this reunion, and none of the girls are here for him. They were all like, you are not taking accountability, you were terrible, you disrespected this girl, you made her feel horrible about herself, just all manner of things. And it was just, he was just, could not win, couldn't win once. Then we moved to Alexa and Brennon, and Alexa's telling the story about how she was ready to go home, like she was ready to leave the pods, but she did have a connection with Brennon, and she told him like, you know, I'm wanting to leave, you know, is there anyone else that you would connect with that you can, you know, further that connection? And he was basically like, no, you're it for me. And so here they are married. So look at that. So good. She did mention a piece of advice that someone gave to her, because I guess her and Brennan were just getting disagreements after they had moved in together and gotten married. was basically like, don't let roommate problems become marriage problems. So I'm like, that sounds amazing. That sounds like great advice. But I also think that could have worked with Zanab and Cole, because it's like, this part is so, that's, you have to distinguish the experiment part from your actual relationship. And so I think it would be different if Zanab and Cole had done this the traditional way. They had gotten together, been dating for a while, decided to get married, had the overnight stays, had the vacations, had the, you know what I mean? And so you are familiar with each other, or are in love enough where it just doesn't even matter. Like, where I can overlook certain things. If I love you, then there are certain things that I just won't bring up, or there are certain things that I don't really care about because of the person that I'm with, right? And so I just feel like there were a lot of temporary things that they were just letting get to them, that maybe that piece of advice would have worked for Zanab. Like, you are being really picky about things that are not permanent, you know, like it's not, or that are not, and things you can get over, you know? So there's that. Cole did look like the villain this reunion. I don't know if I believe everything that Zanab is saying about him, because at the very end of the reunion, so Zanab was telling about the story about how, you know, there was even one point in time where I had like 2 little cutie oranges and I was gonna eat them, and he was like, are you eating both of those? Like, and so she just made it sound like he was really monitoring how much she ate. Netflix, as messy as they are, showed the clip at the end of the reunion. And the whole thing was, they were having conversation. She's in the kitchen. They were talking about them having a reservation to go out to eat at 7. She grabs some oranges and he's like, are you eating both of those? Like, we have reservations. You know, shave your appetite. And then she says, all I had to eat today was like a banana and a scoop of peanut butter. And he's like, why? I would have given you, you know, whatever it was that he had eaten. And she was like, yeah, I didn't want that. That was leftovers, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, are you trying to like fit into your wedding dress or something? Like, is that why you're not eating so much? And she was like, something like that. So what that did for me was say that Zanab is a little dramatic about the stories that she tells. And so perhaps the things that she's saying are probably true, but I think that she blows them out of proportion because her reactions are just so big to whatever it is he's at. Like, how she's receiving what he's saying is probably bigger than how he intends it as he's saying it. So yeah, it was a lot. Cole at the end of the reunion was just crying. They were asking everyone if they regretted the experience, if they would do it again. And Cole's like, absolutely not. Like, this is horrible. Everyone thinks that I am just this terrible person. Like, she's saying I destroyed her self-esteem. Like, why would I want to do this again? And then she's like, yeah, you absolutely did. But then she's like, well, I've forgiven you. I mean, I don't think you are a bad person. You just treated me badly in that relationship. But he just was also saying, like, I couldn't believe that this person that I loved would do this to me at our wedding. Like, I didn't date after. I just wanted to bury myself in my work, and this was just a horrible experience. I would not do it again. She says she would do it again. She was like, it's still Cole or bust. I would do this experience again if I was doing it with you. And he was asking her, like, throughout the reunion, like, if I was this terrible to you, why did you stay? And I concur. Like, I mean, she was saying, I mean, there were glimpses. There were a lot of times where it was just so great and I just saw glimpses of the person that I wanted to marry. But then it's just other times it just was not that good. But in my mind, the way that she is describing how he treated her and how he made her feel was very abusive. Like, it wasn't, oh, we're having a bad day. The way she is describing it was that he was emotionally and mentally abusive to her. and that of course she had to stand up for herself on her wedding day. And so just being at this reunion, like watching this reunion, it is making me think she is just very dramatic in how she explains things and how she perceives what other people are saying to her. And that is just how I feel about that. Watching this show, watching the reunion in particular, but watching this show, I am just reminded that 31 is not that big of an age. Because, I mean, Nancy could say what she wants about Bartise being immature, and he is. But 31 is not that old. And it's just, you all have not reached peak. You just haven't peaked at your adulthood yet. And it's just evident in the way that you interact with people. Nancy was more consistent with Bartise than probably anyone else was, but like anyone else on the show was consistent with their partner. But I also just feel like there is more life to be lived and more things to experience than you probably were able to condense into this 2-month process. So, you know, that is it for this review. I was exactly as stressed out as I anticipated being watching this show. And here's to the next one, because it was nothing if not entertaining. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.